Blog Talk Radio.
And good evening, CMR. Good evening, people of the world. Can you all hear me? I'd like to say a big hello to all you wonderful hospital porters sitting there at home. And if any of the rest of you are here, the rabble, I suppose you can keep listening if you have to. Loud and clear, says Paul. Thank you. Well, refresh your browsers, refresh your ears, and refresh your minds, because Hpanwo Radio is here.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now, it's our turn.
Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hpanwo Radio.
CMR Critical Mass Radio in association with We Are Change Manchester and Freedom Northwest. Please note the views and opinions expressed by the hosts on this show are not necessarily the views held by the station. CMR is for people who want answers, because now it's our turn.
And welcome to Programme 14 of Hpanwo Radio. Hpanwo stands for Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. Tune in for all the latest news, views and reviews from the world of government cover-ups, ghosts, UFOs, hospital porters, paranormal investigation, hidden knowledge, forbidden history and archaeology, chemtrails, and more hospital porters. I am Ben Emlyn-Jones, and this show is intended to be a companion to the Hpanwo blog and Hpanwo TV YouTube channel. Now that was a long one, that song, wasn't it? I thought it was worth it playing it though. Shine On You Crazy Diamond by Pink Floyd. Now it's such an instrumental piece, such powerful instrumental movements that it's very easy to miss the lyrics. They're worth listening to too and paying attention to. Now that's the studio single. I wanted to get the live version. I wanted to play that. I mean, there's loads of live versions online, but I wanted to get the one that's on their live album, The Delicate Sound of Thunder. It's absolutely fantastic. It's very, very hard to get hold of, and I couldn't get hold of it anywhere unless I bought the entire album from iTunes, and I've got it somewhere, CDs of it somewhere. But if you can hear that version of it, please do, because I'll tell you what, your ears will love you for the rest of your life. I promise you. Really will. Right, tonight on Hpanwo Radio, we've got a young lady called Claire McGAULEY. Now, she is a film and television producer and is one of the founders of Edge Media Television, which is, as you probably know, a conspiratorial, spiritual and paranormal station that's available to all viewers on Sky's Controversial TV, Channel 200. It's a good name, that. Pulls people in. Now, I mean, we've all got personal stories about how we got into the truth movement. I became what I consider part, in a sense, of the truth movement probably over 10 years ago now. You know, if someone said to me back then, Ben, you know what? In a few years' time, truth movement subjects will become so popular that a mainstream TV company will have to start an entire channel dedicated to it. Not just any company, but Sky B, which is partly owned by the Murdochs, you know. I'd say, no way, that's impossible, they'll never do that. But it's happened. And my guest on this program of Hpanwo Radio is one of those who achieved it. Now, this has brought truth issues into the living rooms of millions of people, literally. Millions of people who would otherwise never have heard of them. And, I mean, I've been featured on that program myself. I know several other people listening to this show and you know, hosts on this channel, they've been on it too. And they, you know, I don't know about you, but I get people coming up to me saying, hey, I know you were on that Rich Planet program, weren't you? And I can't say I understood it all, mate, you know, but I do watch it and I remember seeing it. And very often I find this is a person who might not use the internet much or read many books on the sort of conspirituality sort of subject off that shelf, but they take it all in. Subconsciously or otherwise, they take it in. The fact that it's there is important, and that is an amazing fact. Now, some of you might be thinking now, Claire McGAULEY, yeah, I've heard that name before, but where is it? Where have I heard it? And when you remember, I'll tell you, because you'll have seen it on the titles of EMTV. Now, Claire herself usually stays behind the camera. She's done very, very few interviews, and so this is a Hpanwo Radio exclusive. I'm pleased to have. But despite the fact that she keeps a low profile, I'd say she's arguably one of the most important single individuals in the truth movement today. I mean, let me repeat this, okay? A mass media TV company has a TV station dedicated to conspiratorial, spiritual, and paranormal matters. And that is something so incredible that we've kind of taken it for granted. We've got so used to EMTV being there that we've kind of lost all sense of the implications of it, the enormous implications. And I think this supports my conclusion that the mainstream media is not completely controlled by the New World Order. No, it's not. Not controlled. It's heavily influenced. Now, a few months ago, I wrote an article on the Hpanwo blog called "Some of Them Are on Our Side," in which I make this point. I mean, when you look at films like Avatar and V for Vendetta, or TV shows like Blake 7 or The Last Enemy, there is no way that these movies and TV programs would ever hit the screens if we had a media under total control of the New World Order. I mean, I do agree. I mean, it's undeniable that there are attempts, occasionally successful attempts, to control our minds via some elements working within the media. But these elements do not have a monopoly by any means. Otherwise, as I said, these programs would not be on our screens if that was the case. I mean, I've heard people claiming that the examples of the movies and TV shows that I gave just now, which challenge the conformist norm and challenge Illuminati-engineered ethics and policies, are a psyop. They're controlled opposition. Now, the thing is, in a completely Illuminati-controlled media, there would have to be a very attenuated and shallow kind of anti-establishment productions. They would have to be. In order not to make the manipulation too obvious. But people who claim that the works I've just mentioned and described here are examples of this controlled opposition are making a mistake, I think. And I think this leads to a very twisted and unfalsifiable logic. Now, I watched Robbie Graham of the Silver Screen Sorcerers blog at the Exopolitics conference, and that was an eye-opener for me. I hear people say things like Avatar is a psyop, Close Encounters is a psyop. I just can't take these people seriously. You see, if any of these works are controlled opposition, then what on earth could not be? How could anything pass the test that these people would use to prove that a film is not psyop? It makes my jaw drop sometimes with the level of daring you sometimes see in the media at the moment. They raise themes that I thought were totally taboo: false flag terrorism, UFO cover-ups, the fake moon landings, fake war reports, mind control in education. Now, these works are definitely not controlled opposition. Real controlled opposition would be very different to what we see. It would be far less soulful, it would be far less sophisticated, and there are works which I think are that, controlled opposition. And that's partly because propaganda doesn't need to be very sophisticated to work. In fact, very simplistic and very monolithic themes in propaganda tend to be the best ones. And, movies like Independence Day and Roland Emmerich's other films, go along with that completely. And I reckon the Illuminati are not capable of producing anything mindless and anything sophisticated. They just don't have the power. And it's for this reason that EMTV has appeared on our TV screens. It hasn't been censored, not because B Sky B doesn't want to, but because it can't. And long may that situation continue. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Hpanwo Radio listeners, I'd like you to pause for a moment, and I'd like you to consider 3 letters of the English language, the English alphabet: O, M, and D. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hpanwo Radio. And that was Sailing on the Seven Seas by Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, a great song from the 80s. And this is Radio Norwich. Aha! Sorry, I just slipped into an Alan Partridge impression. I must stop that. Who's in the chat box tonight? We have Paul. You have the usual motley crew here. Lisa and Max. Hello, Max. Hello again. I think we met once before. And Paul's are there, and George is there too. They're talking about the Noah's Ark, I think, which is interesting. or the Ark of the Covenant? Well, that's an interesting subject indeed. Now, you can always contact me in the chat box if you want to talk, or you can email me at Hpanwo, H-P-A-N-W-O, at criticalmassradio.co.uk. Or, if there's any good emails, I can read them out and on the air, and you can talk, we can have a sort of discussion. Also, if you want to talk about Hpanwo-esque subjects in more detail, you can go to the Hpanwo Forum, which is part of the Hpanwo network. So it's H-P-A-N-W-O Forum, all one word, .freeforums.org. I hope to see you there. And sorry.
CMR Critical Mass Radio is a completely non-profit station where the hosts pay to broadcast their shows. The mission of the station is to get as much information as possible out to people about the world we live in, to unite like-minded people, and to try to come up with workable solutions. If you agree with the work that we are doing, then please feel free to help us continue by making a donation on the webpage. CMR is for people who want answers, because now it is our turn.
Hello and welcome. My name is Kevin Annett, Eagles Strong Voice, and I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the Council of Elders of the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, a multinational coalition of over 15 organizations in 7 countries. Under the authority of that tribunal, as well as common law and the natural land law jurisdiction of sovereign nations, I declare that as of this day, Saturday, September 15th, 2012, a public international court of justice is hereby convened to consider evidence related to charges of crimes against humanity and criminal conspiracy by institutions of church and state and their fiduciary officers. The crimes that will be documented and judged in our court are abominable and almost unimaginable. They span centuries and range from outright murder to systematic torture, rape, slave labor, germ warfare, medical experimentation, drug testing, involuntary sterilizations, child trafficking, genocide, and wars of extermination against peaceful nations. These crimes are all the more heinous by the fact that they were often aimed at children and occurred not randomly by isolated individuals, but historically, systematically, deliberately, and officially by express command of heads of church and state according to their laws and customs, and by the fact that many of these crimes carry on today against the innocent at the hands of the same authorizing institutions and heads of state. The enormity of these crimes requires a new approach, for this court is a unique experiment in that under existing international law, institutions cannot be brought to trial or account for genocidal or criminal actions, despite the fact that these crimes arise from and are caused by such institutions. There has consequently been no legal recourse for millions of people whose cultures and lives have been destroyed by the deliberate plans and actions of institutions of church and state, such as in the case of the conquest of entire continents of non-Christian people by European kingdoms operating under the sanction of so-called papal laws. Similarly, in the case of countless victims of sexual assault and torture by clergy of Catholic and Protestant churches, national courts have continually denied these victims the right to sue these churches as a whole and restricted their litigation to individual perpetrators, despite the fact that church laws and policies allow, protect, and legitimate such assaults. These very restrictions require not only an entirely new legal approach to the historic wrongs of church and state, if justice is to be done and seen to be done, but the fact that existing courts refuse to address the root cause of these crimes by naming the systems responsible for them compels the citizens of all nations to rely on their customary and unalienable rights to win justice and protect themselves and their children when existing authorities refuse to do so. It is in this spirit that our International Common Law Court of Justice is convened. Our court stands upon the precedent of the Nuremberg Laws and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, which state clearly that citizens everywhere have the right and the obligation to refuse to obey or pay taxes to governments or institutions engaged in crimes against humanity. That is, it is recognized by international law that institutions as well as individuals can be engaged in criminal actions and can therefore be held accountable and liable in a court of law. The purpose of our common law court is to do precisely that. Our court has standing under not only the customary right of citizens to pursue justice and defend their communities, but by our relationship with the courts of various nations that claim universal jurisdiction over human rights cases. The evidence presented before our court will also be filed in these national courts that do not operate under the authority or legal systems of the various powers we will be naming as defendants, such as the so-called Crown of England and its Admiralty laws, or the Vatican and its so-called canon law. Our court will be pursuing this course in order to render an enforceable verdict against churches and states responsible for the heinous crimes that we will document to the world. Our court is not a symbolic gesture, but a legitimate legal procedure that will seek the indictment and imprisonment of guilty parties, the restoration of stolen land, lives, and wealth, and the abolition of institutions responsible for ongoing crimes against humanity. With all of this in mind, let me begin by explaining the procedure and protocols of our common law court and our timetable in the weeks ahead. Today's session is part of a normal pre-trial process in which the terms of the trial are established, the cases and parties to the action are named, and a public summons is issued by the prosecutor's office to the named defendants. These defendants will be given 10 working days until October 1st, 2012, to respond in writing to the summons and agree to a pre-trial conference, often called voir dire or examination for discovery, in which evidence can be shared and pleadings heard. If the defendants refuse to respond, their silence can be deemed to mean that they do not contest the charges made against them, and is often interpreted as a tacit admission of guilt. In this case, our court will proceed with the prosecution's case against the defendants in absentia, and the formal trial will begin. This legal process will be overseen by a panel of 5 sworn judges, an office of citizen prosecutors, and a common law jury of 58 citizen jurors based in Canada, the United States, Ireland, England, the Netherlands, Italy, and Australia. All of these participants has of today been duly sworn and have taken an oath of confidentiality and service. For reasons of security and due process, the identity of these judges and jurors will remain confidential until the day the final verdict of the court is pronounced and the court officers are discharged. Today, September 15th, a public summons is being issued to all of the parties and institutions named in the 5 cases being presented by our court. These parties will have until midnight Greenwich Mean Time on Monday, October 1st, 2012, to respond to the charges and agree to a pretrial conference date. After October 1st, either that conference or the trial itself will proceed, if necessary, in absentia. These events, as they occur, will be posted the same day on our tribunal's website, itccs.org. Now, in conclusion, allow me to present to all of you the 5 cases being brought to trial by our prosecutor's office, cases which summarize the main evidence gathered to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that the churches, governments, and individuals named as defendants are guilty and indictable for crimes against humanity and a monstrous criminal conspiracy. The first case, in the matter of Kevin Annett and the people versus the Government of Canada, the United Church of Canada, the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church in Canada, and the officers of these churches, the Assembly of First Nations and its officers, Weyerhaeuser Logging Company and its officers, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and its officers, and the Law Society of British Columbia and its officers. The plaintiffs, Kevin Annett and the people, claim that the defendants are associated with a centuries-old criminal conspiracy and crime against humanity authorized by church laws to conquer, enslave, terrorize, and permanently eradicate non-Christian nations and indigenous people, and to deprive these peoples of their identity, livelihood, lands, and resources, and that these same defendants have actively used and are using the medium of their religion and so-called Indian residential schools to accomplish this conquest and other crimes which fit the definition of genocide under international law. The plaintiffs further claim that these crimes have caused the death of at least 50,000 children in the Canadian residential school system alone, and many hundreds of thousands of other Native people and their offspring. The plaintiffs further claim that these crimes continue to the present day and involve the deliberate targeting and extermination of Indigenous families, children, and land-based communities across Canada, and that these crimes are aided and abetted by officials of the Crown and private corporations, the media, church officials, the RCMP, the courts and legal community, and their agents. The plaintiffs further claim that this plan to eradicate Native families is deliberately aimed at traditional female elders and their lineage, and involves operating child trafficking and pedophile sex slavery networks, the murder of Native women and children, snuff films, and other criminal acts. The plaintiffs further claim that the defendants are actively concealing these crimes and their complicity in them through a sustained campaign of historical falsification, misinformation, lies, destruction of evidence and eyewitnesses, obstruction of justice, and other methods of dissimulation and fraud. And finally, the plaintiff, Kevin Annett, further claims that the defendants did knowingly and with malicious intent enter into an ongoing criminal conspiracy to intentionally assault and destroy his livelihood, employability, good name, and family in order to conceal evidence of all of these crimes, and especially of their theft and profiting off of land of the Ahousaht Nation, their defrauding of the public, and their collusion in genocide, rape, and murder of generations of Indigenous children in the so-called Indian residential school system. Our second case, in the matter of the people versus the Government of Canada, the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and the United Church of Canada and their officers. The plaintiffs claim that the government and named churches of Canada are deliberately obstructing and subverting justice, defrauding the public, and concealing these crimes against humanity by establishing a self-regulated, restricted inquiry into the residential schools called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that has neither the mandate nor the legal power to conduct a competent and effective investigation. The plaintiffs further claim that these named organizations and persons are deliberately concealing, destroying, and subverting evidence of their own crimes in these schools. They are silencing eyewitnesses, denying the latter due process and civil liberties, and are re-traumatizing them deliberately with intent to destroy them. The third case on our docket is the matter of the people versus the Crown of England, the New England Company, the Anglican Church of Canada, the Government of Canada, and the Six Nations Confederacy and its officers. The plaintiffs claim that the defendants are responsible for the intentional, planned extermination of generations of Native children at the Mohawk Indian Residential School in Brantford, Ontario, and for the deliberate and continued concealment and destruction of evidence, documentation, burial sites, and human remains at this school and elsewhere. The plaintiffs further claim that these parties actively conspired and planned ways to destroy the entire Mohawk Nation through the medium of the same Mohawk Indian Residential School by way of a formal agreement signed between these parties in the year 1870. The fourth case on our docket is the matter of the people and Victoria Stewart versus the United Church of Canada and its officers, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and its officers, the estate of Anne Kiniski, and the Government of Canada and its officers. The plaintiffs claim that the defendants killed and aided and abetted in the killing of Victoria Stewart, age 9, at the United Church Indian Residential School in Edmonton, Alberta, on April 9, 1958. The plaintiffs further claim that the defendants concealed this murder by falsifying records, removing body organs of the deceased, silencing eyewitnesses to the killing, and issuing a false and fraudulent account of her death, and that this concealment and obstruction of justice continues. And finally, the fifth case on our docket, in the matter of the people versus the Vatican and its chief executive officers. The plaintiffs claims that the defendant are part of a deliberate international criminal conspiracy and crime against humanity to aid and abet organized child rape, torture, and trafficking within the Roman Catholic Church, using their position to protect and maintain such crimes. The plaintiffs further claim that the defendants are actively obstructing justice in Italy and internationally, according to a Vatican canon law policy known as Crimen Solicitanus, which is binding on all Catholic clergy, and which compels them to engage in the same criminal conspiracy for protecting and aiding child rapists within the Catholic Church and concealing these criminals from police and legal authorities. Now, the evidence regarding all 5 of these cases in our docket will be presented by our prosecutor's office commencing October 1st in the absence of a pretrial conference. That evidence will be posted and available online in the course of the trial, as well as being submitted to the 58 sworn citizen jurors who will be charged with rendering a final verdict on the evidence. The world, in effect, will be in the courtroom to hear and consider all of this evidence of some of the worst crimes against humanity in history, and to come to its own consensus about what must be done to end forever the reign of terror of criminal institutions in our midst. In the meantime, please read the background of these cases and some of the evidence being presented at our website, www.hiddennolonger.com. Again, you can follow the progress of our court at www.itccs.org. Our next broadcast will occur on October 2nd, 2012. Thank you, and may we close by saying, let justice be done, though the heavens may fall.
And that was an announcement there by Kevin Annett of the International Tribunal of Crimes of Church and State. There's a saying among, I think it's the Fathers for Justice people, they say, justice is coming. And I think we can say it safely this time. Justice is coming. The court case, which had a few hiccups along the way, but now it is going to start. And it is going ahead. This is great news. I just urge everyone to support Kevin as much as you can. Help him out in any way you're able to. And tell as many people you know. Just get the word out. Hpanwo Radio News. The space weather is coming up in a minute. But first of all, we're going to take a little bit of time out with the voice of the beehive. Hpanwo Radio Space Weather. Right, it's been a very, very important week in the world of space weather. Big news, it is dominating the headlines, is that mysterious explosion that happened last week on the planet Jupiter. This was picked up by an amateur astronomer called George Hall of Dallas, Texas in the USA. It just lasted for a couple of seconds, but it's very, very clearly seen on the large disk of Jupiter. Now, the news stories covering this are calling it impact. What they think it is some object like an asteroid or a comet hit Jupiter, just like the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 did in 1994. But the thing is, that's actually an assumption. No asteroid or comet has been observed anywhere near the planet on a collision course with it at all. Jupiter is enormous. It's by far the biggest planet in the solar system, and it's actually 1,300 times the size of the Earth. So if you have a look at the picture of it hitting, you can see very clearly the explosion. You realise straight away that this explosion must have been titanic. Now, I didn't think much about it until after, in last week's program 13, if you remember, I interviewed Dr. Manjir Samantha Lawton. Now, I didn't really make the connection until after that program, and I'd had a chance to think about it. But Manjir spoke about how the Earth's atmosphere is sometimes hit by very similar explosions, though thankfully not as big as the one on Jupiter, otherwise they'd probably blow the Earth to bits. But they're regularly viewed, and they're known as sprites, and these are huge bursts of energy in the upper atmosphere of the Earth. And it usually happens when a large bolt of lightning strikes the ground below. When that happens, they emit a massive amount of energy. Now, scientists don't know yet what's going on with them, But they've already been blamed for destroying the Space Shuttle Columbia in 2003, if you remember that disaster. Now, Manja has a theory about this, and she's had theories before which have been proven true before. Now, she thinks they're caused by these creative black holes that she spoke about in her interview. Not only that, but the flares that you get on different planets are actually connected at a higher dimensional level. That these black holes are actually they're sort of like conduits into this dimension of a higher dimensional energy. She describes it as the breathing of the universe, this breathing in and breathing out process she spoke about, relating to the creative activity of these black holes. I do recommend you listen to Program 13 in the archives to see for yourself exactly what I'm talking about here. Right, so the moon. The moon we've got a brand new crescent. It was a new moon on Sunday. It's rising at 9:55 a.m. and setting at 7:54 p.m., which means you're not really going to see it much because it's only up during daylight at the moment, only visible just after sunset, perhaps. On the subject of sunset, sunset is actually at 7:12 p.m., so it's getting earlier and earlier every show. It rises at 6:45 a.m. Sunspots, we've got a few on the southern half of the disk, and there's one quite big one actually near the southwestern limb of the sun. Still no spotless days, of course. Solar flares, they dropped off during the week actually, and at the weekend we had a baseline right at the bottom of the B range. Now it's risen slightly since the weekend to the top of the B range. There's a handful of very long kind of drawn out flares that have just reached into the low C area, so it's not going to cause much trouble at all. Geomagnetic storms. Middle latitudes active at 10%, minor 1%, severe 1%. So that's basically nothing. High latitudes also very low. Activity 20%, minor storms 20, severe 10. So that's not a lot. Near Earth asteroids. Well, this big one, the 1,000-foot plus 2012 QG42, passed at 7.4 lunar distances on Friday. Now that was online actually. There was a special broadcast by the SLU Astronomy network online, and they did a special event to view it. There's another one passing on the 24th of September called 2012 RK15, so that's almost as close. Now, but it's only 288 feet across, so it's not very big. After that, there are no more detected inside single-figure distances until at least November the 28th. Yep, that's right. The forecast has been extended from November the 5th at last, which is good. Solar wind speed is 239.3 miles per second. The density gone up a little bit, 0.28 particles per square inch. Hpanwo Radio Space Weather. Right, coming up next is this Hpanwo Radio exclusive interview with Claire McGAULEY, an unsung heroine of the truth movement, a film and television producer, one of the founders of Edge Media Television, conspiratorial, spiritual and paranormal TV on Sky's controversial TV channel 200. Don't touch your dials, stay where you're sitting, because Claire will be up next. And that was White Lines in the Sky. Great song about a very, very serious issue, chemtrails. And White Lines in the Sky is by Reverend Wawa, our very own George, who's host of The Prisoner Show, which is broadcast on Thursdays on Critical Mass Radio. Claire McGAULEY is up next. And on Hpanwo Radio, we have Claire McGAULEY. Welcome, Claire.
Hello, Ben. Hi.
How are you tonight?
Yeah, great, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the EMTV business.
Well, well, I guess I'd got into actually conspiracies and stuff a few months before I got offered the job at Edge Media. I was kind of I was the manager of the station and was involved in kind of launching it. And I guess at the time it was the first ever conspiracy channel that was on the television. You know, this was the first time anything like this had ever been on TV before.
Yeah.
It's mostly been on the internet and stuff. So yeah, I kind of got given a copy of Zeitgeist, and that was the first time I kind of been introduced to many of these ideas. And after I'd seen it, I was kind of really like, God, you know, is this true? Is this what is really going on? So I became like really hungry for more information. I wanted to know more. I wanted to research more. And it just so happened that an old friend I'd worked with before, I found out Keith Goodyear was launching this channel. And so I spoke to him, and he got me on board to help launch the channel. So it all started from there, really, and then off we went.
Right. Well, it is true. Actually, it's a very important point that, you know, Edge Media is something we almost always take for granted nowadays. But you know, if someone said 5 years earlier, you know, there's one day going to be a mainstream TV channel about these subjects, people say, don't be daft. But of course, you know, because there is, you know, there is such things as media censorship and things like that. Maybe we can talk a bit more about that later on, you know. But I always feel encouraged when you know, the censorship can't impose things by force, and it reaches a point where they can't keep things quiet, and people want this information so badly that they can't be denied it anymore. And I think Edge Media is a very, very important symptom of that. I should say from the outset, it's a very, very good sign that such a channel exists.
Yeah, I think so. You know, and you know, yeah, it was great to put this information out there, and you know, especially, you know, I think a lot of us who were involved in the station at the time, you know, were coming to a lot of this information for the first time as well. So it was great to be able to kind of go online and find these videos and things like that, and be able to just share them with on the television, you know, rather than posting them on your Facebook page or wherever you normally share these kind of things. You know, we could put them out on television and just share them with lots of people. And I think we were the first TV channel to broadcast Zeitgeist as well, which I think, you know, a lot of people have got things to say about that movie now. And it was propaganda, or it was this, or it was that. But no matter what anyone really has to say about the movie, I do think it played a big part in waking a lot of people up, because it kind of tied the global conspiracy together in a way that, you know, many people had never really heard before. You know, involving all the spiritual aspects and the banking system, and it just tied the whole thing together. And I think that was just such a massive movie at the time as well. So just really from that, and yeah, it
was an excellent movie. I mean, it was sure. I mean, there are things in it that I don't quite gel with, and you know, it's been criticised fairly in some cases, you know. But like you said, it's even a film that sort of like is not quite what you might think as ideal can actually do an awful lot of good. And I'll
completely. I mean, it depends. I think the key thing is, which we always said at Edge, was, you know, we weren't trying to push one view of the world. It's really to stand back and, you know, with no judgment, let these people come on and say what they've got to say. And, you know, you can take what you need to take from whatever movie you see, what television program you see. You know, you don't have to believe everything everyone says. You know, everyone's got their own view of how the world is and how things work. And I think it's really important that we take what's true for you and what gels for you, and the rest of it, you know, you can put aside in a box for later or wherever. But that's part of the journey, I think. You know, things that gelled with me maybe 5 years ago, now you know, I'm not, you know, I don't necessarily believe that anymore. I've moved on and found other information that resonates with me more. So it's a journey. It definitely is. And I think that was the thing with Edge, you know, it was about supporting people on this journey of discovery, which was, you know, a journey of discovery about the self as well, because, you know, we put on a lot of very self-empowering programs and programs about spirituality and things as well. So it was a real journey, and I think that's what this thing is. This you know, these people who are into these subjects. It's a journey, and if you speak to, I mean, I bet you probably feel differently than you did 5 years ago about certain things as well. You know. I
do, yeah. I mean, I like to try and stay fluid in my views, and one of the things I like about Edge is it does allow people that choice. It does allow people that kind of it presents multiple views from different angles and allows the viewer to decide, which is kind of what I think critical mass radio tries to do as well, which is it's the only way to address these subjects. It says on the EMTV page, it says, you know, no dogma.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. It's no dogma is the important part, I think.
That's it. You know, still given a chance for these alternative views to be aired. You know, I mean, a lot of the time, if a conspiracy theorist goes on, you know, the BBC, they'll be ridiculed, made fun of. You know, we wanted to just have a place where people could come and discuss this stuff without being laughed at, and speak about it, you know, with no judgment, so that people could make their own minds up, go away, do their own research, and, you know, see what's true for them and what's true.
Very wise, yeah, indeed. Do you actually have even before you were in Edge Media, did you have like training in the media or experience in the media before Edge?
Well, I'd gone to college and I'd worked for kind of local TV station and things like that. And actually, before I went to Edge, I was probably on the brink of a spiritual awakening of some sorts myself anyway. Mm-hmm. And I decided to really completely abandon a career in the media, you know, having like the realisation that most of the mainstream media was all lies, propaganda and everything else. So I kind of decided I'm not, you know, I don't want to do TV anymore. I'm going to do something else. And then when this opportunity came along, it was just like, oh God, okay, well, I've got to do this because, you know, it's a chance to put out something a little bit different from the mainstream, you know. And it was partly as well, we wanted people to stop watching EastEnders, you know, and watch programming that was going to spark something in their mind. You know, the great thing we'd want is after someone's watched a program on our channel is to go away onto the internet and start researching, you know, go and buy some books and get into stuff rather than watching the X Factor and EastEnders stuff that's just mind-numbing. And, you know, we wanted to do something a little bit different.
Oh, you certainly succeeded there. I mean, it's very often. I mean, I often meet people actually who actually watch it. They're not quite sort of like involved with conspiratorial issues or spiritual issues, but they do watch it. They do take it in, and that's good because they're processing it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people come up to me and they recognise me from my own appearance on this channel, and they say, "Oh, I know you, but I don't know much about what you're talking about, but I do remember seeing you there, and I do watch I watch that show. I watch Rich Planet, and I watch Edge, and I think, oh well, good. You know, it'll come to them eventually. They'll get the picture eventually.
Yeah, and you know, and if even people watching it and thinking it's all a load of rubbish and these people are crazy, you know, at the same time as well, I think it's still mind opening. You know, even those people, they're going to be thinking, well, you know, is there something in this? Is it, you know, and I think that's what's great about it. Really, is, you know, I think there's something, even if you're not a believer in this stuff, you can still watch it and get some entertainment out of it as well.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the converse is also true as well, because I mean, I first got back into David Icke. I mean, I heard of David Icke since he was on the Wogan, and then I thought he just disappeared, and then I saw John Ronson's The Lizards and the Jews.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is not a terribly good documentary. It paints him in a very, very bad light, or very ridicules him and makes him look a fool. But that got me thinking. I mean, I thought to myself, you know, I mean, I think I sensed at the back of my head that I was being shown something that was false, and so I went and did my own research, and I realised it was false, and I really started. I read every David Icke book since. So there's another story with a happy ending. Sometimes the propaganda can backfire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a school of thought.
And David Icke is obviously he's huge within these kind of circles. He's doing his biggest show yet at Wembley soon, I think, as well, actually. You know, and fascinating guy. And yeah, you know, I enjoy. I've read a lot of David's books and enjoy a lot of what he's got to say. But like with all of these people, you know, I've read a lot and listened to a lot of these people and their different views and everything else. And you know, it can be quite scary when you get really deep into it as well. You know, you can lose yourself in all of this conspiracy stuff as well, because it's quite depressing, I suppose, at first when you realise, you know, just how messed up the world is, you know. So yeah, I think it's important to, with their spiritual kind of stuff as well, to balance yourself and ground yourself within all of this.
Yeah, to have the dark stuff, but also something uplifting to lighten it up and to provide a kind of contrast to the because if all this dark stuff is going on, you know, we don't want to get bogged down with that. You know, we need to be aware that things are happening and things are going on, and that's great. But we need to stay feeling good as well. You know. Very true. Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that's I've learned is you have to balance the light and the dark, because there's so much dark in this world it can just depress you, make you despondent, and make you give up.
Completely, you know, and we have many viewers kind of, you know, contacting us, you know, because they so like, God, you know, watching these TV programs, you know, and what can I do? What can I, you know, and it was hard because, you know, we were, as I say, at the TV station, a lot of us were going through this as well. You know, we didn't really know what was going on in the world, but, you know, we've been taking in all this information about all these dark forces at work and things like that. But like you say, it's important to ground yourself, and because I really think all we can do really is work on ourselves, really, at the end of the day. And so that, you know, we can all do our own little bit to make the world a better place, hopefully. Yeah. You know, and in our own way.
I'm very fond of the song "Man in the Mirror" by Michael Jackson, where he talks about how it's so, you know, how important that anything you do has to start with yourself, and if you can do that in your own life, very often things around you fall into place. I mean, and there's this, you know, and if you, I think as well, there's another quote I like, which is if you know, you want the world to be a better place and everything, you know, try and be an example of what you want people to be like in the world to be like. And that's a journey for everyone, you know. I think, you know, nobody's perfect, so that's part of the journey, I think, as well, is, you know, just trying to be the better person and you know, it's just personally for me anyway, you know, that's what I try to do, still try to do as well, you know, because it's ongoing. I think once you're on this path, then, you know, it's a journey. Yeah, I feel it's a strange sensation actually, because like you said, I mean, there's loads of wonderful quotes like Mahatma Gandhi, "Be the change you want to see in the world," and but I mean, it's a strange sensation I find, because I'm in a position now I could never go back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's always an effort to keep going.
Yeah, you can't go back. It's like in the Matrix. You take the red pill or the blue pill, you know. And once you've gone down that rabbit hole, it's hard. You can't come out again, you know, because it's you know, you can't, you know, you see reality in a different way, and you know, and I wouldn't want to go back to probably the way I viewed the world before. You know, I'm not saying I view the world I mean, I've got my own kind of perception of the world and my own way that I see the world, which has changed through a lot of the information I've consumed and the journey I've been on. But, you know, I wouldn't go back to the person I was before, you know.
No, I know exactly what you mean, yeah. It's a kind of, it is a one-way street. And as Morpheus said to Neo in The Matrix, he said, if you could go back, would you? Now, of course, he's on this, he's aware of the awful things he has to put up with. He's got to eat awful food as well. There's that dinner scene, you know, where they're all eating horrible food. But I mean, no, I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't want to go back. definitely not. I mean,
no, because I think even when if I think back to myself then, I was deeply unhappy anyway, because I knew something wasn't right. I knew that it wasn't, because really I'm more so, I think, than there being a grand global conspiracy. I think a lot of human beings are unhappy because we're kind of told by society and the media to kind of want and chase the wrong things, and a lot of people go into work, a job they hate, come home, watch TV, go to bed, go to work, pay the bills, and that's all they're doing. And then people wonder why they're depressed and unhappy and everything else. So I think it's as much about people knowing that they have the power to kind of do what they want to do, and, they don't have to be chasing the kind of things we're told by society. We need the bigger this, we need the best of this, more money, the person with the most toys wins,
Yeah.
I think, that's the kind of philosophy as well we were trying to go against, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, he who dies with the most toys wins. That's a wonderful quote from a near-death experiencer. I love that saying. Yeah. Have you always felt like, to quote the Matrix yet again, have you always felt there's a splinter in your mind? Have you had that all your life, or did it sort of emerge at a particular time?
Yeah, I guess always, since I was a child. I've always I can't say what it was, even like they say there, there's something in your mind, you don't know what it is, but yeah, there's always been something there. I've always been interested in the paranormal for as long as I can remember. So I guess really my interest in the paranormal and everything like that first brought me over to kind of conspiracy kind of stuff as well, because it all kind of gets lumped together, doesn't it, in the same kind of group. So yeah, I've always been into kind of aliens and X-Files and like these kind of things.
Well, it does get lumped together, and I think it actually gets lumped together for good reason, and that is that these things are connected. Yeah,
I think they are connected, and personally, I'm saying this now. My view could change. Like, we spoke about this, or but I do think there is some kind of, I don't know whether it's an agenda or it's just because of profit before people or whatever, but to dumb down the population and,
Definitely. It's
both.
And
completely disempower people, really, and make them not aware of their own power and how magnificent they are as well, because I think, each man and woman is so powerful and capable of so much, and I think we're made to feel that we're not, and and if everyone really knew how powerful they were and stepped into their power and did what they could do, I just think the world would be a much more amazing place.
Do you get a lot of feedback from EMT viewers on sort of like saying things like that, saying, this has really, really helped me, it's really made me feel better? Yeah,
we used to get, a real mix of feedback from people, some people hating on us for this or that. But yeah, an awful lot of emails from people who said, some of the programs they'd seen on there had changed their lives, and that was great to be able to be part of that, and be part of putting out programming that did that, because, that's incredible. The way I saw it was, we had this, TV is used as a massive tool to mind control the masses,
Yeah.
So, could we use this in a positive way by putting out in programming that, could enlighten people? And I think we definitely did that, as, we had lots of feedback from people who said it really, really did change their lives, some of the programs and some of the subjects they were introduced to via Edge Media as well.
Yeah, I've always had a feeling about the media, that, people talk about the media being controlled. Well, I think controlled is the wrong word. It's very, very heavily influenced by negative forces. But, obviously there are people, even sort of big names in the media now who I think are on our side. You'd watch Avatar by James Cameron or something like that. And I think to myself, people say, well, look, it's just controlled opposition. I said, well, look, if that's controlled opposition, then how on earth what criteria would you say that something is not?
Yeah, sure. There are people in the media, there's good guys and bad guys, I think, everywhere, and some of them don't even know they're they're bad or they're good or whatever, you know, they're just doing what they're doing. I think a lot of media as well, it's, you know, a lot of it's money as well, you know, they're trying to make a buck, so they'll put out whatever tribe, call it X Factor, whatever the masses are going to consume really as well, because it's all based on money, you know, so obviously something like Edge didn't make very much money because, you know, there's not, you know, we couldn't get big advertisers and stuff like that because we just didn't have the numbers that someone, you know, like the X Factor or someone has. So it comes down to money a lot of the time as well, you know, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're looking for viewers, but I mean, I think I take heart from the fact that even if they're thinking that, you know, they're putting something out which has a good kind of positive message, and that, you know, the owners of the networks or the film producers are willing to sign these things up because they know that it's going to sell well, it's going to be widely viewed, and I take heart from that. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, there's a lot of great stuff out there in the mainstream as well. You know, there's two sides of a coin, isn't it? You know, you've got the anti stuff and you've got the more positive stuff as well. So yeah, it's not all bad, and I think, you know, so many more people are opening up to these kind of ideas and these kind of subjects, because even if you know, some of these theories that we hear about, conspiracy theories things, are not entirely true, or, you know, some of the dots are not connected completely correctly, I think it's opening people's minds up to looking at people in power more, and looking at decisions the people in power are making and why they're making those decisions, you know. Because to me it seems bizarre that we still have things like war and children starving to death and things like that. Just seems bizarre to me, because I feel we're at a point in history where we could eradicate all of these horrible things if we really wanted to. So for me it's well, why not? You know, why are these things still going on? And, you know, maybe I'm an idealist by wanting that kind of world where these things aren't happening. But, you know, I really do think, you know, it doesn't have to be like that, you know. Wars and things like that, you know, it just seems barbaric.
If it wasn't for idealists, nothing would change at all. So Claire, now coincidentally, if there is such a thing, you had a very interesting experience just when you were in the throes of setting up Edge. Yeah,
within the first month of launching the station, I was with my partner, and we had a very close encounter with what I can only describe as a flying saucer. Now, it wasn't just like a light in the sky, you know, you could say, you know, could it be a plane, could it be a helicopter? This was really, really close up. And I did go on TV actually to talk about it a week after it had happened, or a few days after it happened. And it's been a real journey, because, you know, this was something, to see something like this is just completely reality smashing. It smashes your entire reality. You don't know what's going on. So I'd seen this, but also I'm consuming a lot of information about all of this stuff as well. So I'm trying to tie that into my own experience to try and explain what I'd witnessed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd gone through everything. You know, I mean, originally I thought it was a nuts and bolts kind of flying saucer, but, you know, the more I was kind of researching and looking into it, I'm thinking, you know, could have this almost been something from another dimension?
Well, definitely. I mean, if you listen to, I encourage listeners to go to the podcast and listen to my interviews with Malcolm Robinson and Brian Allen, because we actually discussed this subject about what UFOs actually are, rather than what people may assume they are. Even if people know they're not weather balloons, people often say, well, that's a spaceship from Mars or from another planet. Well, we don't actually know that.
Yeah, well, this kind of came out of a big orange glowing cloud that was in the sky, and I saw something fly into the cloud. Then literally 40 seconds later, a full-on flying saucer came out of this cloud. You know, this was probably about, you know, like a roof on a house. It was about that above our heads. Had a beam of light out of the middle of it. It was your typical kind of flying saucer.
Was it like a classic disc-shaped craft?
Yeah, classic. complete classic. And, you know, after I'd seen that, I was like, God, I've got to tell everybody. You know, I must tell everybody. But of course you tell people and they think you're crazy or, you know, they don't believe you. So there's not really, you know, I didn't talk about it for a long while. I thought about going public with it and speaking about it. But then after a while, I was just like, you know, people were not going to believe unless they see with their own eyes. I mean, even if I'd got a picture of this thing, people would have just said, oh, it's photoshopped, you know, or whatever.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in this day and age, they could be right. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, of course. And people are not going to believe in this stuff unless they see it for themselves. I'm not saying it was aliens or whatever it was. I just don't know. You know, there's some people that say, you know, hundreds of years ago, people might have seen angels in the sky or whatever. And nowadays, if we see something, we might interpret it as a flying saucer because that's the paradigm we live in, you know, at the moment. So, you know, even going down that road and looking at theories of those kind of things, you know, I mean, I don't know what it was. I don't know. And it is going to be something, I'm sure, that bothers me until the end of my days, you know?
Yeah. You never forget things like this.
No. I mean, this is 4 years ago, and I'm only really coming to a place where I'm at peace with it, you know? I was running around looking for answers everywhere. I wanted to know what it was, what I'd seen, what does this mean, you know? But there are no answers to be had, I don't think. You know, there's many different theories out there to be explored, but there's definitely no answers quite yet. And, you know, a lot of UFO sightings, I think, can be explained as well, but there is a hell of a lot of weird ones that can't be explained.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's definitely something going on. You know, this has been, as far back, you know, people have been seeing things in the sky and things like this and stories of flying things in the sky. So, you know, I feel lucky to have witnessed it. I do, you know, I'm really grateful that as much as it confused me and smashed my reality, life has certainly been quite exciting since I've seen that, you know. Yeah.
I mean, you do, certainly, I mean, when you started the station, obviously you had a lot of interesting people on who explore this subject in great detail, like Nick Pope, like Timothy Good, and you can actually watch those interviews. I think they're up on Google Video or YouTube somewhere. Yeah, and they're very interesting guys who go into this in detail. It's I think those are the ones I think it's Timothy Good. I think his interview is one that I remember very, very clearly from watching On the Edge. Now, is there any particularly memorable moments from doing the channel that you remember that was particularly spring to mind, amusing or interesting incidents?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Do you know what? I can't even think because there was actually so many just mad things going on at the time. You know, anything in particular you can remember that I can?
Well, there's a with David Shaler. That was very good.
Oh gosh, okay, yeah. David Shaler calling out Crane as the Antichrist, of course, was hilarious. You know, we did used to have a real good laugh, you know. Yeah. But yeah, this is what I'm saying. You know, some of the people we had on were a little bit bonkers. You know, they were quite bonkers. Some of them. Some of them were more sane than others. But there are probably stories I could probably tell you, which I probably shouldn't tell you on here, actually.
Oh, that's all. We have a little disclaimer at the start of the programme saying, you know, this is not necessarily the views of the channel, you know. Everyone
was great. There was some real crazy times, though, as well, you know, and some crazy people, some really crazy people as well.
There were a few, yeah. I mean, and the presenters, I mean, you had a very, very good selection of presenters over the years. And
well, you know, our presenters were great. I mean, pretty much all of them did all of that work for free, you know. Again, just for the love of it, wanting to be involved. So, you know, the channel could not have existed without all of the contributors who gave us their programming for free, who came along and spent their time to help us make programs for free. The whole operation was pretty much staffed by volunteers. You know, so we really couldn't have done it had it not been for it. It was a real collective of people coming together, giving their time and energy, all for free to do this, you know. So it was really great, you know.
Yeah, it's they're different. It's good that they have like slightly different styles, all the different presenters. Like Frankie Marr has one style, then Theo Chalmers has a different one, and there's Alex, who has his own own way of doing things. Something
for everyone, I think. People connect with different people and things like that. But it's great fun. We had so much fun, kind of working on the show and stuff like that. It was great.
Yeah, and Theo is. I've got to know some of these people quite well over the years because they turn up at conferences and things like that. Now,
sure.
Theo has he has a sort of reputation of being kind of the devil's advocate sort of in his style, and I think that's actually something quite necessary. It's actually quite necessary. It makes a nice change, and he, of course, he's actually, I've spoken to him personally, and I found out that he's actually very conspiratorially aware, and he's actually quite keen on some conspiracies that even I am not quite decided on,
Theo loves it,
but he has this image of being the devil's advocate, and he always asks these very, very searching questions. I think he's like.
One thing about Theo is, he wants the truth, and he'll ask uncomfortable questions of these people because he genuinely wants to know the truth. So when you see Theo interviewing these people, it's almost as much as he's looking for the kind of answers himself as well, So he's asking the questions he wants to know, and he's not uncomfortable about pressing people and asking them questions that they might not want to be asked. And I think that's great, a great thing to have in somebody who's hosting such a show.
Yeah, that's true. It is very true, and it makes it more interesting. It makes the program, and it makes the program more interesting, and so that's a very good way of doing it. So Claire, can you tell us a little bit about your experience? Because I think we got some experiences we could share here to do with the truth movement in general. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, I think as well, while I was at the TV station, I almost tried to distance myself from a lot of the people who are in the truth movement and things like that, because, I was trying to stay objective. I didn't want to be part of any kind of movement or anything like that because I was trying to stay objective and give, whoever a chance to come on and speak, whatever I thought about them. But I've watched the movement, which, it's mainly online. Some activists are going out and doing things, of course, as well. But there's a very big community online. And what I do see is people getting caught up in paranoia a lot of the time. Various big faces within the movement being accused of being a shill or, working for the Illuminati and all of these things as well. There's a lot of paranoia and arguing going on, I think, in the truth movement in itself as well. And you've got all these different threads. People who think we should be doing this, we should be doing that, and it's all it all gets a little bit crazy. So it is something I tried to stay away from. I didn't really want to associate myself with any kind of group or anything. Rather just stay objective and let all of these people with their alternative points of view come on TV and talk about them, whether I thought, they were talking rubbish or not. I thought, it wasn't really up to me to decide. The point was to allow these people the platform to say what they had to say.
Yeah, I think that's wise. I take a similar position in the sense that I try to keep independent, and I do try to stay out of too much infighting if I can possibly help it. I've been accused of fence sitting, but I think the thing is, on the fence, it's probably in some ways it is the best place to be, not because you don't want to commit yourself to any ideas, but because there is so much infighting. There is, and I've often said, that the amount of people, the amount of paranoia, the amount of people accused of being shills, they probably do more damage than any real shill could hope to achieve.
Yeah, and I think it all goes back to what we said at the beginning. It's,
That means I should qualify that occasionally, on rare occasions, these accusations I think are justified.
Yeah, of
for
course.
certain people. I wouldn't say who, but there are certain people I would think they are justified.
Yeah. Maybe Alex Jones, right? Maybe he does work for them, for example. But does that take away any of the positive kind of information that we're receiving from him as well? He has his own style of presenting, whatever. But, these people are delivering... I think most people who are out there delivering a message, there's an amount of truth in it, and then there's an amount of complete rubbish mixed in as well. And maybe not intentionally. I think it's just the way humans are. You know, they've got their own spin on what's going on. But definitely there is people within the movement who are placed there. I mean, you only have to see, you know, recently there was a guy, he was a green activist, and he was living undercover with a lot of green activists for a long time. I think to assume that within the truth movement and some of the activists within it, that there's not people placed there to spread misinformation, disinformation, and to basically keep an eye on these people, I think would be silly. Of course there is, but I don't think it's good for anyone to get paranoid and too caught up in it because, you know, well, that's what they want as well. You know, that's part of the game for them, I think, you know, is to do that. So I think you just get on and do what you've got to do. You know, if you've got to spread a message and that's what you're there to do, go out and do that. Don't get too caught up with what this guy's saying or what this person's saying. You know, go out and do your thing.
That's very true, and it's actually good advice for anyone new getting involved in these issues. I think it's good advice, definitely. I mean, it's actually important to listen to as many different people as you possibly can. Don't listen to too much to one person.
Yeah, because it becomes like a cult, you know. You get people becoming gurus and people following, and you know, it's kind of like a Life of Brian situation, isn't it? Where they're like, you know, he's telling people to, you know, what he tells them to F off. Well, how should we F off? And I don't know, you know, don't put anyone on a pedestal. You know, anyone out there, you know, listen to their information and whatever. But you know, they at the end of the day, they don't really know the truth either. They're giving you a version of the truth that they've come to think is real and true for them, and there might be bits in it you can take from it. But yeah, don't put anyone on a pedestal and think they know everything and they have all the answers, because nobody, I don't think anybody here has any of the answers yet. And that's what Edge was about. It was, you know, exploring and discovering, you know, because nobody has the answers yet. We're all just kind of searching, and we've all got our different kind of avenues we go down. You know, some people are into the idea of the global conspiracy and the banking cartels and all of this thing, and people are into, you know, people are looking at other things as well, like how to be self-sustainable. They're looking at the corruption in the health system, you know. So it's a big arena of lots of information. So, you know, but you know, it's more fun than sitting at home watching EastEnders, I think. You know, for me, I like to go online and read about the latest kind of things that are happening in the alternative world, you know, the latest information that's out and stuff as well. But yeah, you can't take what anyone says to be absolute truth. You know, have as much, you know, when you're listening to the alternative media, I think it's important to have as much, you know, be as cautious as if you were listening to the BBC as well, you know.
Yeah, I mean...
you know, it just because it comes from an alternative media source doesn't mean that, you know, it's the absolute truth in this, you know. And I think the alternative media is great, but, you know, they still make mistakes as well, and it's not to be completely trusted as an absolute.
Yeah, I mean, we can anticipate, you know, that the intelligence services and disinformers will take an interest in alternative media as well, and they will try to get inside it. I mean, they have done this before. They've done this in the 1960s with the counterculture movement. It's not a secret now that the CIA and the Tavistock Institute and various other organisations like that did infiltrate and successfully, unfortunately, corrupt what at the time was a very, very positive movement. I mean, you know. So, I mean, it's, like I said, I agree with your advice entirely. I mean, fence sitting is actually, I think, a positive thing in many ways. It's, I mean, it doesn't mean I don't believe everything is true. There's some things I think are true, some things are not true. But I do sit on the fence and listen to everyone. I'm not a part of any organisation. I'm independent, and I'd say to people, stay independent as well. Do you agree that independence is important?
Completely. I think you have to be. I mean, I wouldn't want to follow anyone, or join a club or anything like that. You know, because you know my views change all the time. So I'm a bit wary about doing this interview even, because I know in a few weeks' time my views might be totally different, because I kind of, you know, change and evolve as we all do. You know, if you had spoken to me 5 years ago, I would have been saying, bring down the New World Order, you know, 9/11 was an inside job, and all of, you know, really angry person.
Yeah.
I was coming to this information for the first time. But yeah, so we kind of evolve and change, I think, as we learn more information and we learn more about ourselves as well. But, no doubt there's corruption in the world and things are going on, and it's very important to be aware of that. But as I say, we can't ever really know the ins and outs of what's really happening because, well, we've only got the information. We're in the age of information. It's only been a relatively new thing that we've had all this information at our fingertips. We can go on the internet, we can find out whatever we want to find out about anything, and we live in interesting times, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good title for a newspaper, I think. Yeah. Just interesting times.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, these are very interesting times. I'm happy to be alive and see what happens because these. Yeah.
It's David Icke says it's a great time to be alive. Now, Claire, I mean, what are your plans for the future? I know you're in the process of making a film right now, aren't you?
I am making a movie with Manjis based on my book Punk Science.
She was a guest last week. Check program 13 on the podcast list, and you'll see her. Sorry, Claire, carry on.
Yeah. So we're making a movie based on her book, which focuses on ideas of marrying spirituality and science and consciousness and things like that, which is really the area, I've been talking about conspiracies and things like that, but really my real kind of passion is kind of looking at spirituality, consciousness, the esoteric, and the journey of the self, really, so that's really my thing. So that's kind of what I'm doing with Manjir at the moment. I hope in the future to be able to make some programs that focus on these kind of topics because again, it's an area I think that's underrepresented in the mainstream and really can be really empowering for people to learn ways that they can grow as people and things like that. I know it's helped me to learn about this stuff, so I want to share it with other people as well.
Oh, well done in that indeed. Now, if people want to reach you, now you keep quite a low personal profile. I mean, do you have? But I know your Edge Media TV is, of course, it's on Sky.
So if people want to watch Edge Media, it's on channel 200 on Sky. If anyone wants to contact me, I guess I'll give you my email address, and they could maybe email you and get in contact with me that way.
Sure. I mean, my email address I always give out in the program. Do you want me to pass messages on to you from?
Yeah, if anyone has anything, they'd like to speak to me about, that's fine.
So if any listeners, if you want to contact Claire, I mean, I will pass any messages on to her for you. And of course, you can, as Claire says, go to channel 200 on Sky. It's got a wonderful. The Sky actually give it a different title. They call it Controversial TV, which is very eye-catching and very, very a good way of bringing in new viewers. Well, Claire, I think that comes to the end of our interview now, but. Hope we'll keep in touch. Maybe have you back on again. And thank you.
It's great speaking with you.
Oh, thanks. You're welcome. And it's great to speak to you too. And thank you very much for being on Hpanwo Radio.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Claire McGAULEY, and that was recorded. We recorded that a little while ago. But Claire's in the chat box. So hi, Claire. Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me on. You're very welcome, Claire. It was very, very good. Thank you for being on. Right, I'm nearly at the end of the show now. This is the end of program 14. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and people from Belfast in Northern Ireland, from Barnsley, Manchester, Leeds, and from Sydney, Nova Scotia, Canada. I'm very sorry, Homelies. I didn't have time to play you tonight, which is I wanted to because you've got a new song out, so I'll hopefully play that next week. Right, Paul and Andy are up next with the Unpenned Show. I'm running a little bit late, so my watch is over, and Paul and Andy are going to relieve me of the deck, to use Brian Gerrish's terminology. I'm going to play out a little short song here, and it's called Hit the Ground, and it's by a band called the Darling Buds. And the reason they're called the Darling Buds is they're big fans of the books, The Darling Buds of May by H.E. Bates. And, of course, that was made into a TV series and with David Jason. And the album this song comes from is actually called Pop Zed, as in the Pop Larkin. Perfect, he used to say, perfect. Well, thank you very much for listening to Hpanwo Radio, and very much hope you will tune in again sometime soon. I'm going to be here every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Critical Mass Radio.